doing what you've seen him do for others. Like, there's nothing he cannot do, even if it seems supernatural, super crazy, super out of the ordinary. Like, it's always a possibility that it will happen.
I've been all over the world, and I seen the finest wine, and I seen the finest times, but all the pretty girls come from VA.
Hey y'all, hey, welcome back to my channel. It is your girl B, and I'm back with another video. Hey y'all, hey, if it is your first time here, welcome to my channel. I hope you enjoyed the video, and by the end of it, you go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And if you are a returning subscriber, welcome back, gang. I appreciate y'all. You locked in. So let's jump into today's video. Today's video is going to cover doubt and what that looks like as a person of faith, as a person who follows Jesus, and how sometimes it's inevitable. Sometimes we can't help but doubt certain things, because when we think of all that God can do and what he does do, a lot of it is supernatural and we can't even explain it. So that's like having kind of blind faith. And if you have blind faith, you're gonna doubt a lot. But I wanted to come to you guys and kind of tell you a chapter that kind of opened my eyes to how we doubt and how we do it in an unhealthy way. And I think this chapter, a lot of us point at it and say, wow, she was clearly wrong in this chapter as a whole, but in this particular passage we can see how her doubt caused a domino effect in her and her husband's life, which again, we can look at that now and say she was wildin'. But back then, when you think about it, she's going through her emotions in real time. So in that regard, I tend to give her grace. But yeah, she was tripping. So if you don't know what I'm talking about the book of Genesis, specifically chapter 18, verses 10 through 15. And it reads, "Then one of them said, I will return to you about this time next year, and your wife Sarah will have a son." Sarah was listening to this conversation from the tent. Abraham and Sarah were both very old by this time, and Sarah was long past the age of having children. So she laughed silently to herself and said, "How could a worn-out woman like me enjoy such pleasure, especially when my master, my husband, is also so old?" Then the Lord said to Abraham, "Why did Sarah laugh? Why did she say, 'Can an old woman like me have a baby?' Is anything too hard for the Lord? I will return about this time next year, and Sarah will have a son." Sarah was afraid, so she denied it, saying, "I didn't laugh." But the Lord said, "No, you did laugh." So from this passage, there are two things that are at play right now that stand out to me. The first one being Sarah has doubt, and the fact that her in her older age would be able to conceive a child with her also older age husband Abraham. And I think rightfully so, because when we think of how biology works, when we think of how the world works, that's unheard of. So for her to just blindly believe that, yeah, I'll have a baby in the next year, I mean, there does come some doubt. And then two, the second part that stood out to me is the fact that Sarah laughed. But then when God asked, why did Sarah laugh, she kind of denied it. And I think that's something that a lot of us tend to do, where like when we have doubt that God will follow through on his promise, instead of being honest with that doubt, especially to God, forget about the lies you tell other people. Think about the lies that you tell to God because you are ashamed that you have these doubts, but you feel like because you have these doubts, the things that he has promised to you, you're not going to be awarded. And it's like, no, like God understands our doubts. We're human. I think the doubting comes with being a human being. The thing is, don't let the doubt interfere with your faith and interfere with your belief and interfere with the fact that you will be obedient to what God is telling you to do. As I said, we are mere humans, so we're gonna doubt a lot of things in this life. We're going to kind of integrate the things of this world into what we see for ourselves. But our faith is tested when, knowing all that's acceptable in the world, we go against that because we're obedient to God. That's something that I took away from this chapter. And then even on top of that, like, if you know the story about Abraham and Sarah, you know that she became impatient with God's promise, and she kind of concocted a plan to give her husband a child. And reading the text, it's easy to say, well, why would she do that? But think of how many things in our own life we kind of try to take control of. And in taking control of it, we make things 10 times worse. So now, not only are we trying to get the blessing that God has designed specifically for us, we're also asking Him to fix the mess that we made and trying to kind of use our own craft to obtain what He has promised to us. And then again, it creates a bigger mess. Think of like Sarah and Abraham, where she gave him her servant so that he can make child with her, and think of all the chaos that came from that. In Sarah doubting what God could do, she decided that she would take matters into her own hand. And by taking it into her own hand, Hagar gives birth to Ishmael, and now Sarah feels a type of way. So now, on top of her still not having the child that God promised to her yet, she has to deal with the results of her own action and see the child that was conceived with another woman. Now, in her mind, before it happened, she may have thought it was a great idea. It made so much sense in the world, but it hurts. Seeing your husband have his first child with someone other than you, it had to hurt her. And she responded in a spiteful way. And in that, created a broken home. Can you say trauma? Can you say that's probably like the start of why we all deal with trauma to some degree? It stems from that one moment. So in Sarah constructing this plan, it didn't absolve her from the feeling and the desire to create a child with her husband. I think it actually made it 10 times more evident that she really did want it. And then the funny thing about this story is us reading Genesis and seeing what Sarah did and seeing how she treated Hagar and Ishmael, we can ultimately see that what she did was wrong. However, God still blessed her. God still upheld His promise and gave her a child, gave her and Abraham a child together. Sarah still had her son, Isaac, and she was happy. She was joyous that God fulfilled His promise to her. Now, the crazy part is that Sarah then sent away Ishmael and Hagar. And outside from the obvious of her sending away a kid to be fatherless, think about the fact that she just tried to hide her wrongdoings. She sent them away to hide her wrongdoings and not to live face to face with the consequences of her action. And I think that's what a lot of us do. We doubt what God tells us, and then we pretend when time has passed that we didn't doubt. It appears as if we have unwavering belief in what God is promising us, but so many of us don't even know what He's promising us. So many of us haven't heard God say, "This is what I promised you." We're going off of biblically what He has promised us. I find Sarah and Abraham's story to be very I found the story of Sarah and Abraham to be a sensitive topic, especially for me. If you know me, you know that I've always desired having a lot of children. But life will make that difficult. I don't think it's impossible, but I do think it will happen by the grace of God, and it's having the patience, or not the patience, rather, it's having the faith to believe that when God is ready for me to have children, it will happen. When God decides, that's when it will happen. It's not something that I can kind of just do at my own whim. It's not something that I can take control of, because I don't have the authority to do that, and I don't want to start trying to using other sources as a way to achieve it, because then I may receive it, but it may not be as great as the blessing God would have given me if I just sat patience and be obedient to him. So yeah, that's how this story resonates with me. Instead of lying and saying that we always believed and we always knew that God would do it, I think we need to be more transparent with the fact that we question it. That at times, our faith wavered a little bit, but we remained obedient to him so that we allow him the space to do what he says he's going to do, because it's going to happen in his time. And also be honest with the repercussions for not remaining obedient to God. Like, let's not try to hide our mess. Let's not try to hide how we fail. Because at the end of the day, God forgave us, and I think it could be a instrumental tool for others who's experiencing the same thing. There's no such thing as a perfect Christian. There's no such thing as a perfect person. Like, again, just be honest. Speak to God when you have a doubt and ask him to show you kind of what he has intended for you. And even if you're failing to see it, in real time, just like have those open conversations and have someone you can actually be honest with in those moments. I'm not saying go shout it from the rooftop to everybody who will listen, but to those people you trust, be honest with them and tell them, and have some prayer warriors around you so that they can pray for you and pray you up out of the doubt, so that you can overcome it. But yeah, if you guys enjoyed this video, I hope this resonated with some of you. Go ahead and read the book of Genesis. It is a rather large book, but I think is very telling on how people have operated since the beginning of time. None of us are perfect. None of us have 100% faith. Some of us are gonna mess up a lot, but God is going to continuously show us mercy and show us grace and still look out for us. So yeah, just keep that in mind. And if you made it to the end of this video, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. How much you love it here. Also turn on your notifications so you can stay up to date on all the new videos. And I will see y'all in my next video.
New York and MIA, then it's PG around my way, so I'm never had to stay away.